Hi, welcome back to my garden. This week has been full of shopping, experimenting, and of course gardening. And I wanted to share some of the things that I've done this week with you. First thing is I worked on perfecting pressed floured cookies. You may have seen these. They've recently become very popular on the internet. I came across them a couple of years ago and thought, oh, if I ever do a big event in my backyard, I definitely want to do this. But the first thing I had to do was find all sorts of blooms. And I collected blooms and arranged them just for fun. But these were all the flowers that I picked, if you can see that. Isn't that just lovely and colorful? Then I played with pressing the flowers. The first thing I tried was the iron method, when you place them in between parchment paper, kind of press them a little bit, and then you iron them flat, which actually worked quite well if you're using pressed flowers for decorating or doing a craft project. But when it comes to baking, when you bake the ironed pressed flowers, they really, by the time they've gone through the heat process with the baking as well, they lose all their colors. So, so that didn't quite work. So I tried then something else, and I found that some flowers will maintain their colors better than others. So if you can see here, I have pansies and violas and some zinnias and cosmos and even some bachelor buttons for the blue. But I played with a lot of different flowers and textures, and here's a close-up of one that I put some lavender and a cute small cosmos flower. And then I also played with shapes. So those are some finished ones, so the hearts. And anyway, I was really happy with how they turned out. Whoops, look, isn't that pretty? Here's a lavender one. Oh, the lavender, those have been sitting. I even tried begonias. There's a lot of flowers that will work. Alyssum, lavender, pansies, violas, plumbago. For me, it's an annual, but in other places it is a perennial. Dahlias, fuchsias. I didn't try fuchsias. Even roses work, but I would do the single petaled roses because you don't want to get them too fat. Nasturtiums, I don't have any of those blooming yet, but feverfew was wonderful. Biden, which is sort of like a daisy, will work. So there's a lot of beautiful flowers that will work for the pressed floured cookies. And there's also some that will work if you're doing something savory. Basil blooms, broccoli flower, cilantro flowers, sage flowers, so dill, chive blooms. All those would work if you were doing something savory. But I think I figured how to do that. So I'm going to be working on those the month of July, doing them in batches and freezing them for August. And the other thing is I went thrift store shopping because I'm going to decorate the tables with bud vases with flowers. And so I need to start collecting some cheap bud vases. And I found probably about 15 different shaped, and look at this one. I think that one's so cool. Different sizes, different widths, square, round, but they were all like 50 cents to $1, and I was so excited. So I got a bunch of those at the thrift store, and I'll probably hit a couple more before the month is out. So I did that this week, and I even found a couple of really cute floral skirts at the thrift store, so that was fun. And the other thing was I was trying to figure out what to do with our fire pit. That we don't use that often, but it's sort of in the middle of the back part of our yard, and it needs to be spruced up a little bit for the wedding. And so my daughter-in-law sent me a great idea about a wine barrel, and I thought I could put a big wine barrel in there and fill it full of roses or flowers. So let me show you what I did. Okay, so here is the fire pit, and as you can see, I have a giant wine barrel right there, and I had some new roses that I didn't know what to do with. They're pretty young, so I stuck them in this wine barrel, and I added a few trailing annuals around it. I probably won't be able to keep these roses in here, well, at least all of them, long term, but for this summer I think it will work great. I have a bolero, Thomas L. Beckett, David Austin, and over here I have a baby crown princess margarita, David Austin, and I put some delphinium in the middle, and I've got potato vine and trailing lobelia around the center. So I think that will fill out really nicely and be sort of a focal point in the middle of this back part of our property where you can see our vegetable garden. And then over here we have our shed that we're going to paint. And then of course I have my flower garden that's specifically for picking, and my dahlias are just starting to come up. And that is a Joseph's Coat climbing rose that's around my husband's grandpa's wagon wheel. Let me quickly show you this Twilight Zone bloom on this tree rose. It is absolutely divine, and it smells out of this world. And the Henry clematis with the American climbing roses, they're just about ready to bloom, and that's going to be a spectacular show. I can't wait, either in the next couple of days or next week. The other thing I was working on in the yard was this shade garden that my kids always called the forest. It was a great place to hide and have airsoft wars when they were young, but I really wanted to start looking at something a little prettier. So I've been working on this little entry that goes back into this little shade spot, flanking it with shade pots, and I put in this little path and this arbor, and hopefully these climbing roses will start to do their thing. And then I'm adding some rocks, which I found for free at somebody's house, and so I went and hauled some rocks away. Here's another one, and there's another one. So I firmly believe if you can get it for free, then definitely do so. Okay, the flower arrangement today that I picked in the yard this morning is just all sorts of fun things. I have clematis, I have some peonies, I have some roses, David Austin roses, yarrow, campanula, Japanese iris, and one of the things I found is I went to the vegetable garden and I found sage blossoms because I hadn't cut any sage for a bit. And the other thing I found, we forgot to harvest our broccoli, and so the broccoli bloomed. Let me see. And so it has this really dainty, beautiful yellow flower. And if you can see this up close, look. So you can see a little bit of the broccoli right there. And but it makes a beautiful cut flower. So and it's edible, so you could put it in a salad for some color if you want. But that was today's flower arrangement. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see what happens in the garden next week.